Dear students, in our previous class, we have completed our chapter, that is object-oriented programming. Under object-oriented programming, we have discussed few points regarding classes and regarding objects. But in our today's class, we are going to discuss in detail about classes and objects. So, under classes and objects, which are all the things will come one by one, we are going to discuss in detail. So, first we shall going to define what is a class. Class. What is meant by a class? Here, class means it is a keyword. Keyword means which is predefined. Predefined means before defining a class, the class is given. The class name is given. Okay, before using the class name is given. That type of a word we can call it as a keyword. So this class can be called as a very powerful keyword, and it is also called as a building block of C++ that leads to object-oriented programming. So we shall see class is a, so you can write it like this. A class is a powerful keyword. A class is a powerful keyword in C++. Okay, you can define class as a powerful keyword in C++. And next point. Okay, a class is a basic building block. A basic building block of C++. It is a basic building block of C++ that leads to object-oriented programming. That leads to object-oriented programming. That leads to object-oriented programming. Okay, class can also be called as a building block. It is a powerful keyword in C++, and it is a basic building block, okay, of C++ that leads to object-oriented programming. Okay, and one more point is here. A class is a collection of objects. A class is a collection of objects that have okay, identical properties. That have identical properties, common behavior, and it is also having shared relationship. Here, it's a class can be called as a collection of objects. Okay, and that is having, okay, those objects are having identical properties. Every object is having the same properties. That is, we can call it as identical properties and common behavior. Every object of a class is having the same behavior. Okay, each object will behave same as the other object. And next, the third thing is shared relationship. if they are the objects of a class are having the relationships, and the relationship of one class can be shared with the relationship of other class. So this means that the class is having shared relationship. And finally, the last point here is a class combines data elements and functions. A class combines data elements and functions, okay, into a single entity. What the class will do? It will combine the data elements and functions. Okay. Later I will explain you regarding the data elements and functions. What actually means the data elements and what are all the functions, I will explain you later in this same class only. Okay. Here the class will combine those data members and functions to form a single entity. Like this we can define a class. Basically it is a powerful keyword in C++, okay, and then it is a basic building block of C++ that leads to object oriented programming. Based on marks you need to write the answer. If it is asked for 1 mark, you need to write these 2 points, or more than 1 for 2 or 3, 2 more points you need to write, and you have to define the class. Okay, next we shall see what is meant by an object. What is meant by an object? Okay, object in general, anything. An object means something, okay, either it may be a thing or maybe any place, we can call it as object. But here under computer science, what is meant by object? Object means it is an instance of a class. It is an instance of a class. What is meant by this instance? Instance means this is the blueprint. Okay, I will give you one example. Take your PUC textbook. Okay, take second PUC textbook. Okay, this is a class. Okay, second PU textbook is a class, and the blueprint of this textbook, blueprint of second PUC textbook. Okay, blueprint which is having at the front side of your textbook, that is called as blueprint. Okay, so that blueprint can be called as the object of a class. Okay, because blueprint contains many things which are included under the textbook. So we take textbook as an example for class. Okay, and the blueprint of the textbook will be called as an object. Hope you have understood regarding class and object. Now we are moving to the points here. Definition and declaration of of classes and objects. Definition and declaration of classes and objects. Okay, what is meant by this definition? First we have to think what is meant by this definition. Definition is a class definition. A class definition is a process of naming a class. A process of naming a class. Okay, it is a process of naming a class. Then data variables, naming class, data variables, and interface operations of a class. And interface operations of a class. Interface operations of a class. Definition of classes and objects. Okay, this can be given as, it's a process of naming of a class, giving a name to the class, that is called naming of a class, and then naming the data variables, and also it is the interface operations of a class, naming the interface operations of a class. Interface means connecting two objects, the process or the way which is used to connect two things, that is called as interface. In other words, interface we can call it as, it acts like a bridge between the two things. Okay, to interconnect the two things. Okay, to communicate the two things. A process of connection used to communicate two things. That process is called as interface, and the interface operation, naming of interface operations of a class, this is called as the definition of class and objects. Next come, what is the declaration? Okay, what is meant by the declaration? Declaration here means a class declaration. A class declaration specifies the representation of a class declaration. It specifies the representation of objects of the class. A representation of objects of the class and a set of operations that are performed on such objects. Okay, a class declaration. Okay, it will specify the representation of objects. It will specify the representation of objects of the class, and then the declaration will give a set of operations. This will give a set of operations that are performed on these objects. Such objects means they are these objects. Okay, hope you have understood this thing. Definition means this thing and declaration means the second thing. Now come to the point. Okay, now we shall going to see some points regarding definition and declaration of classes and objects. Okay, first point. The data variables known as member data describe or it describes the characteristics of a class. Describes the characteristics of a class. Member data. Okay, this member data can be called as the data variables of a class. Later we will discuss regarding member data and the data variables. Okay, the data variables that are known as member data. Later you will come to know what is meant by member data. That describes the characteristics of a class. Okay, every class is having some access specifiers, and each access specifier includes member data and member functions. Data members and member functions, or member data and member functions. So first thing we have discussed regarding member data. Come to the second point, we will discuss regarding member functions. Okay, member functions are the set of operations. Member functions are the set of operations that are performed on objects of a class. Okay, one thing is member data, the next thing is member function. These member functions are the set of operations. They are the set of operations that are performed on objects of a class. Okay, these member functions, they are the set of operations that are performed on objects of a class. And let's see how many member functions should be needed in a class. So here there are 0, okay, or more member functions. 0 or more member functions. There are 0 or more member functions in a class. Okay, every class is having, it may not have any member functions, okay, and may have more number of member functions. So this is called as the declaration and definition of objects and classes. First is regarding member data, and the second thing is regarding member functions. And this is also known as interface. This is also known as interface. Interface, I have explained. Okay, the process of performing operations on the objects of a class is known as interface. Hope you have understood. And the next point. See, third point, the access control specifiers. The access control for the to the class members within a program are specified okay. The access control specifiers there are three access control specifiers. The first one is private access specifier, the second one is protected access specifier, and the third one is public access specifiers. Later we will going to discuss in today's class only regarding these access specifiers. They are okay to the class members, okay, public access access control specifiers of class members within the program are specified. Okay, they are specified within the program. The next thing, I will write here and rub this point and write here. Class tag name for external operations class tag names for external operations for accessing and manipulating interface of a class. See, a class name is given, okay, and that class tag name for external operations, it will access. It is used for accessing and manipulating the interface of a class. Okay, class tag name for external operation. Listen, if we want to perform any external operation with the help of a class, okay, so for that type of external operations, accessing those operations and manipulating those operations with interface of a class will be given. Okay, with interface of a class will be given. So these are the points regarding definition and declaration of classes and objects. So far we have discussed, that is, one is member data, which I was written here, member data, no point is changed, member data. The next thing is member functions, and the third thing is access control specifiers. Now I will give you a general syntax of these three things. By that general syntax, you will come to know what is meant by member data, member functions, and access control specifiers. Okay, I have given some practical programs to practice. You have practiced those programs. Under those programs you have seen the class. Under class you have seen two things. One is private, the next one is public, and those things only called as the access specifiers, and the things which is present under private access specifier, those things are called as member data, and the things which are present under member functions, those things are called as the things which are present under public access specifier, those things are called as member functions, and that private and one more thing is public, These two things are completely called as access control specifiers. Now I am going to give you the general syntax of defining a class. The general syntax of defining a class. By this general syntax, you will come to know what actually means the access specifiers and what are member data and what are member functions. So I will take one syntax, okay, the general syntax of defining a class. Defining a class. Okay. The general syntax of defining a class. We will take it as class. Okay. And class name is always a user defined name. As we like, we can define class, then user underscore defined, then underscore name. Okay, user defined name means any name we want we can give to the class. There is no restriction that this name should be given. But one thing, class is a keyword which is predefined. We have to give it compulsorily, class. Then name is left to us. Whatever name we want, we can give. Then after that, open the braces. Then write first access specifier, that is private. Under private access specifier, one thing is member data and the next thing is member functions. Member functions. Okay, this is the first access specifier. And next, the second access specifier is protected. Protected is the second access specifier. This also includes member data. Also includes member data and member functions. Member data and member functions. Then after that, finally, one more access specifier is there, that is public. This also includes member data and member functions. And member functions. And finally, the class will always going to close by a brace, okay, by a brace followed by semicolon. Like this, a general syntax of a class can be given. Now, we will take one example based on this. Okay, example. Okay, but one more thing you remember, protected access specifier only definition is given in your syllabus, only that's it. In your programs, protected access specifier is not used anywhere. Just the definition of protected access specifier is given, but private and public access specifiers are used completely in your programs. Okay, now we should take one example. Take a bank account of a person as an example and write class. Okay, and give class name as account, because we are taking bank account of a person as a class. Then open this one. Okay, then after that, private access specifier, private, it includes data members. So write which are the data members comes under a person's bank account. Okay, which are they? We can take whichever we want. Then first I will take integer type that is account number. First we will take account number integer type. Why we are taking integer type? Because it includes only the integer number, account number. It does not include any characters. Okay, then char. Okay, the name of an account holder. Okay, which comes under 20 characters. Okay, how many characters we want? We can give any number of characters. Then after that, char. Okay, then account type. Account type. Why I am using data type character here? Because name includes only the alphabets. Okay, then why I am using for account type? Account type also includes only the alphabet. Either it is SB account or current account or the demat account, whatever it may be, but it explains. Just it will give the type of account, either SB or current or demat. Then integer, then account balance. Okay, how many rupees are remaining in account? Okay, they are numbers, so we will take it as integer. Okay, then private access specifier is completed. After that, come to public access specifier. Public access specifier includes member functions. Okay, here we will take just like void get data and void put data. Okay, one thing is void get data. Look here, get data means here why we will use get data. Here, get data will be used to read these details to the computer. Okay, then one more thing, void put data. Put data. Okay, there is no restriction that we have to take only get data, only put data. Either you can take read data or display data. Anyhow you want, you can take. And there are parentheses, open and close parentheses. It means it is a function. Any statement which is followed by open and close parentheses will be called as a function. And so these two things are having open and close parentheses. Finally, they are